Welcome, everyone. I just went on election.
Is Trump a dictator or not?
Trump isn't a dictator. He's the wrench in the machine the real dictators built. While global elites tighten control through media, money, and tech, he's using their own system to expose and collapse it from within. He didn't seize power. He shattered their illusion of it. They call him dangerous, not because he's breaking laws, but because he's breaking control loops. This isn't tyranny. It's the most strategic rebellion against tyranny we've seen in our lifetime. Why Trump isn't a dictator. A dictator silences opposition, expands state control over life, controls media to suppress dissent, uses fear to maintain obedience, consolidates power, and never lets go. Now let's look at Trump. He didn't silence opposition. He took relentless criticism from media, institutions, even his own party. He reduced regulations, not to control more, but to allow more freedom in business and innovation. He was banned from social media, not the one doing the banning. He returned power to the states during COVID rather than forcing nationwide mandates. He walked away from power peacefully, even under pressure and despite deep disagreement with the election process. So what is he doing? Trump's actions aren't about seizing control. They're about exposing control. He's using economic, legal, and geopolitical moves to apply pressure on globalist networks who've hijacked sovereignty through trade, tech, and centralized finance, force corrupt players to reveal themselves by pushing them into reaction, negotiate from strength, not submission, using tariffs, sanctions, and alliances as leverage, not dominance, shift power dynamics without collapsing the system, forcing realignment instead of full destruction. The bigger connection and agenda, this isn't just about politics, it's about resetting the board. He's operating inside the system, but he's not of it. He's using its rules to expose its weakness and create openings for decentralization, innovation, and sovereignty to rise. That's not dictatorship. That's disruption on a level most people still don't fully see yet.
Amen. It is. Exactly.
What is happening in Venezuela is literally so different from
This has to do with the voting machines.
Back in 2005, a news reporter, Lou Dobbs, already reported how Venezuela was the central operational hub from where elections were being rigged around the world so that the deep state could install their criminal agents in key strategic positions so that they could fulfill their agenda for one world government, for world domination. Listen to the clip here.
A firm owned by Venezuela could be allowed to take over one of this country's top voting machine firms. Venezuela, of course, led by Hugo Chavez, working to change the views of most South American countries, moved to the left. Critics of the deal say our nation's very democracy is now for sale without anyone doing a thing about it. Getty Pilgrim reports.
The use of some 19,000 electronic voting machines in the city of Chicago and Cook County primary on March 21st of this year is now under intense scrutiny. The U.S. company that makes the machines, Sequoia, was bought in 2005 by Smartmatic, a private company primarily owned by Venezuelan businessmen. When Chicago had problems with the machines, a dozen Venezuelan employees were there to help with the election. Chicago officials are outraged.
I think that American elections ought to be run by American companies and ought to be run by American citizens, not Venezuelan nationals.
Smartmatic is technically based in Boca Raton, Florida, but the president of the company, Jack Blaine, testified to the Chicago City Council. Fewer than a dozen Smartmatic employees work in Florida. The majority of the workers are based in Venezuela. Watchdog groups question why U.S. voting machines would be under the control of citizens of another country, especially a country whose own election process is highly suspect.
Too,
We believe this is a national security issue. There is no way that companies belonging to non-U.S. corporations should have access to our elections.
This was later confirmed by Sidney
Everyone getting
Powell
used to
2020
doing the Rumble
when
thing, or
the presidential election in
looks
America
like it's going to be a while
had been
before we have
stolen
Wimpkin
to
up and
position
running, right?
Biden as an executor of the plans of the Satanists to destroy America and deliver America into the hands of the cabal. Listen to Sidney Powell.
I can hardly wait to put forth all the evidence we have collected on Dominion, starting with the
Tammy's
fact
here
it was
too.
created to produce altered voting results in Venezuela for Hugo Chavez, and then shipped internationally to manipulate votes for purchase
What's
in
happened
other
is
countries,
we've been out
including this
voting.
one. It was
They're
funded by
cheating.
money from Venezuela and Cuba, and China has a role in it also. We have staggering statistical evidence.
Yeah,
We
I
have
hear you,
staggering testimony
Tammy.
from witnesses, including one who was personally in briefings when all of this was discussed
Kind of
and
had the same
planned,
thing happen over
beginning
on
with
Orbeez.
Hugo Chavez and how
When
it
they
was
tried to
designed there,
update the
and then
software,
saw it
messed it
happening
up.
in this country. So, I mean, we are talking about hundreds of thousands of votes. President Trump won this election in a landslide.
President Trump himself has posted a video of military intelligence whistleblower who confirms this. Listen to him.
From the official Dominion PDF ballot. In other words, the printing process, appearance.
One thing I like it, I'm
is
doing it from
completely
Rumble
different
Studios. I
than
can
what
see
you would
the,
get from a first
a lot
generation
of the comments from both YouTube
These
and
25,000 unidentifiable
Twitch and-
ballots alone represent over
and,
double the amount of Joe Biden's 10,457
and
vote
locals.
mark.
If
I
our
can see the
election wasn't
locals'
rigged, it was a
comments,
rigged
too.
election. Now everyone knows it. It's going to come out over the next couple of months
So-
too loud and clear because we have all the information here.
So what
Dead
is
and quick.
happening is that President
So there's
Trump, as the
5 places I
spearhead of
see
the
it from.
White
For
Hat
some reason,
operation
it's supposed to
worldwide,
bring the
White Hat
Facebook
operation means
comments over,
high
but it's
level
not.
military intelligence strategic network worldwide of good people who have not bowed their knee to Satan, but who are serving Christ in an operation to save
I
humanity
have to
from
literally
the
go
plans
over and
of
check
evil.
them.
They are now literally ending one of the key centers of the cabal in the world, just like they did with Ukraine. Ukraine was a center for human trafficking, for underground breeding of children, for a sexual pleasure of the elites, and for human sacrifice. It was a central intelligence headquarter of the Satanists worldwide. That's why George Soros said that if they lose Ukraine, it will be the end of their civilization. That's why the Rothschild said it'll be the end of the world if Ukraine is captured. That is why they've been funding
Yeah,
the
BitChute
war in
doesn't come
Ukraine
over
so
either.
massively because they are
Just looking.
desperate to lose it. They need to recapture what's in Ukraine. Venezuela, I believe, is similar to that. It has been orchestrated as one of the hubs for drug trafficking, but for election interference and for many other evils around the world. Trump and the White Hats are busy strategically taking out all these headquarters, all these centers. In so many videos I've told you guys, we are experiencing the deliverance of humanity from a rule of evil. This is going to become so beautiful, so epic. Do not listen to the liars, the naysayers, the doomsday preachers, those who always cast a shadow over everything, those who insist on convincing you that evil is all there is. Those people are blind and they are evil in their heart. They're being inspired by darkness. Listen to the people who tell you the real facts. Trump is part of an operation to save humanity. Follow
I
me
hope so.
here if you want to hear more.
I hope we can win this too. It'll come down to us a lot. Now here's the leftists that figured it out that they've been cheating.
Okay, I'm not going to lie. When the Republicans were saying that illegal immigrants are voting and turning the states blue, I did not believe them. And the reason that I didn't believe them was because I was like, well, you have to have a driver's license. And in order to have a driver's license, you have to have a social security number. And if there were any other government documents that you had to have in order to vote, those also require a social security number, and only American citizens can obtain those. But then I discovered that there are 14 states out of 50 that do not require any type of identification at the polls. For those 14 states, there's an exception where they may be required to show ID. And then in quite a few states also, there are government issues.
Do you know that we're only one of 2 countries that allow you to do mail-in balloting?
IDs to non-citizens where they can vote for
Us in
certain
Germany.
municipalities. And then there are 12 states that require documentation but no photo ID required. So it could literally be something like a utility bill. And that's not counting the 14 I listed earlier. So we're already over 50% of the entire country that does not have proper documentation to vote. And then there are 9 states that request your photo ID but offer alternative ways to vote, like an affidavit. There are only 10 states in America that strictly require photo government ID to vote.
All of those
the
are
Republicans were not wrong. And this was the source I used in case anybody was curious. It's nonpartisan.
Unbelievable. Can you believe it?
We, our group of citizens, inherently don't trust our election systems.
I wonder why.
To begin with, because this is the WEC website called Badge of Voters, and you can see that the total count of registrants on here is 7.1 million registrants. And it gets to the problem that we only have 4 million adults in the state of Wisconsin. So we're approaching, and the 7.13 million number on the voter rolls, that grows almost daily. It never ends. It rarely goes down.
So they've got 7 million voters when there's only 4 million people. So there's 3 million more voters registered than there is people. And you wouldn't think every single person would be registered to start with. That's how bad the cheating is out in Wisconsin.
It dropped slightly when they sent out the 4-year postcards, and then it shot right back up, and it's the highest that I've ever seen it. Okay, and it's even worse than this because there's the 4 million adults in Wisconsin. Not all of them register, not all of them vote. We're really down around about 3.6 million, 3.7 million.
Can you believe that? I lost my ID. Is that like I lost my homework? I know you can go get another ID. There's no doubt about that. Here we go. What they're doing to Tina Peters is real bad, too.
Does the investigation confirm that there are missing ballot images?
Yes.
Yes. Do you know why 380,761 ballot images?
In fact, if you try to offer your ID, they have a fit, you know? If you try to show them your ID, they have a fit here in New York.
Just from election day machine count are not available.
That's good.
We subpoenaed Fulton County for all of their ballot images. We received approximately 518,000 ballot images.
From election day?
Those are for the recount.
Those are from the recount, but we have no ballot images for 380,761 ballots from election day, correct?
Oregon, it's all mail-in,
isn't it? What was subpoenaed was the ballot images for the recount because
that's so they can really stuff the ballots.
This case was about.
If they have someone they don't want to win, they will never win. If it's really a conservative out there.
Does Fulton County know why there are not 380,761 ballot images from election day?
Numbers and everything now. I've got a video about them. I'm going to play it tomorrow. They're buying off judges. $50,000 is the going price.
Would Fulton County agree that every vote should have a ballot image?
Unbelievable.
And lastly, sir, as you know, declassification and rooting out weaponization, politicization of the intelligence community is a huge priority. You know more than anyone else the very dangerous and negative consequences of that. I've got a long list of things that we're investigating. We have the best of the best going after this, election integrity being one of them. We have evidence of how these electronic voting systems have been vulnerable to hackers for a very long time and vulnerable to exploitation to manipulate the results of the votes being cast, which further drives forward your mandate to bring about paper ballots across the country so that voters can have faith in the integrity of our elections.
Amen.
Burn bags stuffed with evidence, secret emails buried, and a cover-up stretching to the highest levels of government. Newly unsealed documents from the 2016 Trump hoax now reveal a stunning link between George Soros and the scheme orchestrated by Hillary Clinton's campaign. But that's just the beginning. Today, the White House zeroes in on Nancy Pelosi's controversial stock portfolio. President Trump secures a major win on tariffs, and seniors 65 and up are about to see a significant new tax break.
Yeah, I think
it's all happening fast, so don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell.
Oh, I got a longer version.
So there has been a major plot twist in the Trump-Russia investigation. Some of the most
I got a longer version I'm going to play maybe tomorrow about him taking the money and all that. And they're caught on camera.
Receipts showing this was all a hoax cooked up by Hillary Clinton and her campaign were stashed in burn bags at FBI headquarters. You know, the kind used to obliterate classified intel? Convenient, right? And just as these declassified bombshells start making their way to the sunlight, guess who comes scrambling out with a preemptive spin? John Brennan and James Clapper, Obama-era intelligence chiefs, trying to control the narrative with an op-ed claiming, quote, "We find it deeply regrettable that the administration continues to perpetuate the fictitious narrative that Russia did not interfere in the 2016 election." Sounds like someone doesn't want us to look behind the curtain, but that curtain's already been yanked. Durham's report includes emails, get this, scooped up via Russian intelligence, allegedly written by Leonard Bernardo, who is the senior vice president for George Soros's Open Society Foundation. Yeah, now we're playing in the geopolitical big leagues. According to the annex, now declassified, Bernardo writes about a Clinton campaign advisor, Julianne. She's also referred to by Julie and Julia. One of those emails reads, quote, "Julie says it will be a long-term affair to demonize Putin and Trump. Now it is good for a post-convention bounce. Later, the FBI will put more oil into the fire." In another email obtained by Durham, Bernardo allegedly wrote, quote, "HRC," meaning Hillary Rodham Clinton, "approved Julia's idea about Trump and Russian hackers hampering U.S. elections. That should distract people from her own missing email, especially if the affair goes to the Olympic level. The point is making the Russian play a U.S. domestic issue. Say something like a critical infrastructure threat for the election to feel menace, since both POTUS and the VP have acknowledged the fact IC would speed up searching for evidence that is regrettably still unavailable." Now, John Durham interviewed Julie back during his investigation, and she claimed at the time she doesn't recall receiving any of those emails. Let me be clear here. This was never about Trump. It was about power, and they'll do it again if no one stops them.
Well, it's also they want to do a total new world order power thing.
Hey, do you guys remember in 2020 when we had the biggest election turnout for voter participation in the history of the United States of America, and Joe Biden got 81 million votes, and we were like, hey, that math makes absolutely zero sense. There's actually no way that you could do that with the number of registered voters. And then President Trump called down to Georgia to talk to Raffensperger and say, hey, what exactly is going on here? I'm only losing Georgia by 11,000 votes. That doesn't seem to make any sense. Georgia seems like a place that I should win. And I think we should probably be able to find 11,000 votes. Can't we? Can we push to get it in there? And then they impeached him for it. Georgia just had to admit that they certified 315,000 ballots illegally without the proper signature. They said they have no excuse for what they did, and they don't.
Over 300,000 of them.
Dispute the allegation.
Yo, what's up, guys? We're outside of a very important place here in California. You'll see it's just home to a Porta-John and a giant empty parking lot. But inside of this empty parking lot is something really important in the state of California. As you can see here, we have registered voters. 26 registered voters for this exact location, 100 Sunset Avenue in Venice. 26 registered voters. Right here, according to the registrar and the Secretary of State. 26 people registered to a Porta-John.
I bet you there's millions of votes out there that they're cheating.
Where do their ballots go exactly? So who's picking up the ballots? Who's voting for the people in this lovely Porta-John empty lot? That's the question. I think you know the answer.
From a Porta-John? Unbelievable.
Is it your position that a person can still be convicted of a crime with which they were never charged and with which the jury was never instructed, as long as the evidence is sufficient?
Yes, I think that is what the case law indicates, that if it's just in
this is the case against Tina Peters. They're doing this against Tina Peters, and this was the hearing about getting her out after all this. They convicted her on nothing.
In this case, I'll just point out too that, I don't have the language of the the statutes that you're citing in your hypothetical, but it was one word, might, and it was already.
Yeah, but that one word distinguishes it from a felony to a misdemeanor.
And in this case, made an extra sentence, 15 more months in the Department of Corrections that couldn't have been given had it been a misdemeanor conviction. It clearly affects a substantial right.
And I'll just say, I'm confused as to why the people are continuing to maintain that the proper remedy on this isn't to enter the conviction for the misdemeanor, because the indictment used the word might, and the jury was instructed on that, so that's what the verdict is. I am baffled as to the position that's being taken that we can somehow overlook that and still enter the felony because the evidence that was presented at trial would have supported the felony. Are you still maintaining that position in front of us here today?
Yes, that is our position.
What case law supports that argument?
I'm sorry.
What case law supports that argument?
I've cited it in my brief. I don't have it right in front of me, but the case.
They have to keep her in jail so she can't talk. Now they've done this whole thing where they had someone attack her in there, and they put assault charges on her. She's a 70-year-old lady who's got poor health. She's probably going to die in there. They want her to die while in prison so they can get away with it.
It's the omitted elements
Yes,
case
correct.
law, right?
Mhm.
But that's just where the element was omitted, and but the element that was omitted wasn't in dispute. Here, the jury was
I did see something
affirmatively
like that about the counting them
misinstructed.
by hand.
It was
Some other rules,
instructed
too.
on the
They got
misdemeanor,
total control
and
in
it found her
Virginia.
guilty of that misdemeanor beyond a
luck on winning
reasonable
the,
doubt. This isn't the
federal
omission of
election
an
there
element.
now.
This is a misinstructed jury. How can we
gonna be hard enough to win
correct
elections.
that by
Local
saying,
elections. They've won
no, we'll
every
just assume that
level, House,
because
Senate,
she
and
could have
everything.
also been convicted of the felony, we enter that even though we don't have a jury verdict. That's a,
I understand it's a difficult position
Okay.
for the people to be in. But
it's not a position you have to take.
But thank you. But I do believe that the omitted element language applies because to me, I understand, I can hear from the way you're talking about it, that seems more egregious
totally.
to
And you won't
add
be able
this
to win
extra
any
word than
election
it is
there.
to omit an element. But to me, omitting an element is a pretty big deal. And
Yeah,
the fact that can be
Except
not
in those
reversible.
cases, at least the person was originally charged with the elemental language. Here, never on the table.
Now, since they're charging her with the other stuff, they're going to be able to keep her in there longer again with another felony.
It's true, but if I can just
Somebody
add,
started
and
a fight
again,
with her,
it seems that I will not be able to
cornered
convince
her
you,
and
but I
started
just
a
want
fight
to
with
put
her,
my argument out there,
and they're
which is that
convicting her with it.
there wasn't a confusion from the parties about what they were talking about
With
because
assault. That's what it is.
the correct statutory citation was used. So they were on notice of the statutory citation. The language was incorrect, but the statutory citation was correct.
Couldn't
And there-
that also mean that the prosecution was on notice that they'd only charged, since the language was correct, they'd only charged that language and not,
Well-
both of them were on notice of something wrong.
Oh, yes. I guess what I'm saying, Your Honor, is just that there wasn't a notice problem because there was the statutory citation. And the parties treated it as though, I think it was an oversight. I think everybody believed that they
Oversight?
had charged and used the language that's what the record bears out, in my estimation.
Unbelievable. They're desperate.
Apparently, this is where 70 people are still registered to vote as of today. And I think that's what really pisses off most people is that
It just doesn't make sense.
it just doesn't make sense.
It just doesn't make logical sense unless you do it on purpose. Right behind me, this beautiful building is actually the Peachtree Pine homeless shelter that was closed almost 10 years ago in 2017. But there's still some weird stuff happening here.
The weird thing that's happening here is that, again, according to Georgia registration rules, people are still registered to vote from this exact same location. Over 70 people are actively still registered to vote.
I mean, I would love to even maybe we can walk around and see where would someone actually even drop off
I don't even know that there was people there even then.
ballots here.
That's a good question. Why don't we actually go do that? Let's walk around and see what's going on.
Oh, it's definitely nothing in here.
Oh, they're all lined up for
I
stealing
don't
in
think
Virginia.
we're
And
supposed
then
to-
they're going to take that lesson and do it in other states too.
Well, apparently this
Federal,
is where
local,
70
all the-
people
all
are
the
still
levels.
registered to vote as of today. And I think that's what really pisses off most people is that
It just doesn't make sense.
it just doesn't make
Guys,
sense.
It just doesn't make logical sense unless you do it on purpose.
And Democrats' biggest narrative always is that you guys are trying to suppress people's votes, take away homeless people's votes. We're literally at a place where people are actively registered. And I don't see even homeless people squatting in
There's
here.
no one here. There's literally no one here.
Can you believe that? Unreal.
So we're outside 477 Peachtree Street Northwest. Fabian,
I think I
what
just
is
played
this
that. I'm
place?
sorry.
So this is apparently
Two
a
of the
place where
same.
there are almost
Hold
100
on.
people registered.
We've proved now that there was direct access to the Antrim County election management system because we show on November 5th, you can see it in the forensic images, that an anonymous user logged onto the EMS remotely with escalated privileges and made changes to the database when they were trying to retabulate the election. So that's one huge, huge development because now we prove that the machines were remotely accessed. And more importantly, they were remotely accessed by an anonymous user who had elevated privileges in the system. That is pretty damning for the non-forensic reviewers out there, or people who do not want a forensic audit. And the other thing probably is equally explosive. Everyone's seen ballots before, like these ballots here. On the side of the ballot, there's these black boxes. There's 59 black boxes on the side of the ballot. We now see within the forensic images that in Antrim County, those blocks 15, 18, 28, 41, and 44 were all intentionally modified. The height and the width, the shape of those blocks were intentionally modified in order to generate errors. What does an error do? In this case, by modifying those specific blocks,
They were kicking out
able
Republican
to
votes.
cause rejections for Republican ballots. Meaning if you
They
voted
do
for Donald Trump,
everything
and
you
they
think
put
they
your
would do,
ballot
they do
in
that
the
and
machine,
more.
your ballot was rejected at a rate of 20% more than Joe Biden ballot.
It's enough to win the election. Plenty enough to win the election.
Not one of the military ballots was a registered voter. And the ballots looked like they were all exactly the same Xerox copies of the ballot. They were all for Biden across the board. There wasn't a single Trump vote.
Jeez, I wonder how
And
that
none
happened.
of the voters were registered. They had to manually enter the names and addresses and a birth date of 1/1/2020, which would override the system and allow them to enter non-registered voters, of which I saw several that day. Throughout the day, that's how they would override voters that were neither in the electronic poll book or the supplemental updated poll book.
Thank you.
I wonder how that happened, huh? Oh, it couldn't happen by accident, right?
Because we won in 2016 by a lot. The election was rigged in 2020. We have all the ammunition, all the stuff, and you'll see it come out. It's coming out in truckloads. And California's election, New York also, but California more than any other place is so rigged. It's such a rigged election. You know, we won the Hispanic vote. So a lot of people say Republican wouldn't win California, but I won the Hispanic vote. I won in Miami. Think of that. In Miami, I won the Hispanic vote. Along the Texas
'cause there's a
border,
lot of Cuban
I won
there.
every single
They know what
city
socialism is.
or
And
town
the left has gone
touching
full-on
the Texas
socialist.
border, and they're 85 to 90% Hispanic. We won the Hispanic vote. If the vote in California was legitimate, which it's not, they have 38 million ballots. Everything is mail-in voting. They mail out 38 million ballots, and they come in. Where the hell do they go, and where do they come from? It's a rigged election in California because we would win
It sure
California
is.
by a lot. And again,
And New York.
feel they have the advantage with Hispanic. They don't.
They've been cheating for years.
The Wolf of Washington could be in big trouble. Investigators might finally get a peek inside Nancy and Paulie P's earnings sheets.
Nancy Pelosi should be investigated because she has the highest return of anybody practically in the history of Wall Street. It happened she knows exactly
They
what's
are
going to happen,
rigging
what's
the
going to be
California
announced. You buy stock and then the stock goes up after the
Even for the districting, they were messing with it.
announcements made.
Nancy heard the news and ran to CNN on a busted hip.
You're right,
but
Tammy.
Tapper treated her like Biden on debate night.
Nancy Pelosi became rich.
Why do you have to read that? We're
Well-
here to talk about the 60th anniversary of
tell
Medicaid.
the
That's
truth.
what I
You
agreed
better
to
not
come to
tell
talk
the
about.
truth. Yeah, but I
and
wanted
what
to-
that means in the election.
I wanted to give you a chance just to respond. He
I-
accused you of insider trading. What's your response to that?
That's ridiculous. In fact, I very much support the trading of members of Congress. Not that I think anybody's doing anything wrong. If they are prosecuted and they go to jail. But because of the confidence it instills in the American people, don't worry about this. But I have no concern about the obvious investments that had been made over time. I'm not into it. My husband is.
I'm not into it. My husband is. So Paulie P's in Napa, a Wall Street whiz kid, and his wife knows nada? If pillows could talk. Meanwhile, the Senate's suiting up too. They just advanced an anti-stock trading bill for Congress, but Trump's not pleased.
Wonder why.
Looking at
Georgia
these
veteran.
147,000 mail-in ballots. Now, what is at issue here? There's a couple of key things. Here's the two key things is, were there counterfeit ballots? 6 affidavits. Now we had 4, now it's 6.
Yeah, she's already made
6
her billions
affidavits
there,
of veteran election officials
but they still want
are
more
alleging
power.
that
You
up
know,
to
that ice cream's pretty
30,000
expensive
of
she
these
uses.
147 ballots are fake. Somebody printed them up on a machine and ran them through the vote counting machines. They're not real. They're not attached to anybody. They have 4 pieces of evidence for this. None of these are going away. None of these can be explained. Number one, they're on different paper. What kind of paper are they on? Why isn't the same paper that everything else is on? Number 2, they're not folded. Well, what do you mean they're not folded? In order to get an absentee ballot, you have to get it in the mail, which means that the Department of Elections in Georgia machine folded the ballot. You can't have a ballot in an envelope that you mail back or Dropbox back. That's not folded.
They had a stack
you either
ready
got
to
it
go,
folded,
that's why.
or you sent it back folded, or both with an envelope. So why aren't they folded?
Yeah, John.
Number 3.
More need to go to jail, that's why.
You've got the same exact bubble mark on the ballot, the same one for upwards of 30,000 of these ballots.
Though, is
97% of them voting for Joe Biden,
so
97% voting for John Ossoff.
To get some people in.
And the fourth
we can't
thing
get
is
the numbers in there
the
that
affidavits
would
say
fix
that
this.
these
get the numbers
bubble
of
marks
people in
are
there
not
that
made
can
by
fix
an ink pen or a pencil, that they're made by a machine.
Can you
These
hear
are the
me over
things
the
that
thing
they're
or
going to look at. Now, they did.
Or should I pause it each time? Well, we've been out voting the cheating, but we can't vote enough in there to totally stop this crap, you know?
Analysis batch of 950 military ballots. 950. I want you to grasp what the findings are. And this is a matter of public record. Nobody made this up. Out of a batch of 950 military mail-in ballots, Joe Biden got 950 votes, Trump 0. That's 100%. That is virtually impossible to have happen. Not only that, they were in sequential order. That's also impossible. That means that every ballot that came in the mail is somehow in exact sequential order. How is that possible? These are the things they're going to look at. This is why Burt Jones and Brandon Beach today, 2 state senators, called for the GBI to get involved. Here's the other thing Burt Jones said, state senator there. If the judge Judge Amero makes a declaratory judgment that counterfeit ballots were there and that some of them were counted twice, that's the other possibility here, that he's going to demand that Governor Kemp call a special session and they're going to start decertifying elections. Trump, Biden. Second one, U.S. Senate. Purdue likely won in the first ballot. Why is Ossoff there? Why was there a runoff? Number 3, a House seat, 7th district, 400 of votes separated the Democrat winning. Plus, there were a number of seats in the Georgia House that were under 200 or 300. All of those are going to call for a special session to be decertified. Steve, this is unbelievable what is going on.
He always wants to go to break all the time.
Address. We are open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Jason, it's blatant. Anybody can see it, literally in big letters. This is a commercial ad. We're outside 1441 Woodmont Lane, another one of these suspicious places where a ton of people are registered to vote from. And this is the actual physical place of 1441 and
Somehow 138 voters there.
Also 1445, 2 different places where people are able to register to vote. But obviously, this doesn't seem like 139 people live in a tiny place like this. So what's going on here?
Yeah. So this is a virtual mailbox. It's similar to say, the UPS store or one of the other post office boxes. But a lot of these type of places people will use for legitimate purposes.
Voters there.
For example, if I travel a lot, I want to get my mail delivered here. Maybe they open my mail. Different ones have different features, but they might open my mail and scan it for me. So that way I get my mail remotely.
Okay.
However, the law is clear. You need to register to vote where you live. You can have this as your mailing address. You just can't say you live here. 138 people don't live here.
So it's not essentially illegal for people to do this, but it's illegal if you're registered to vote and to say that this is the place where you live at in order to be able to vote, for example, in a Fulton County election. Am I getting this correctly?
That's correct. Maybe they live in a different town. Maybe they live in a different county. They can't say they live here. Otherwise, they're voting for the wrong folks.
This is a commercial address. We are open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Jason, it's blatant. Anybody can see it, literally in big letters. This is a commercial address. Mail belongs to our clients. Again, clients should not be able to vote and say that they live here and then be able to vote from this place. That is the problem here.
Absolutely.
Fulton County.
Okay. Well,
have we heard that name before, huh? We've heard that enough times.
Why would 1,000 people be registered to vote from one single location, 201?
I must have downloaded it twice.
And Maricopa County officials, they're refusing to turn over routers or router images to the election auditors. They're defying a judge's orders. What are they afraid of and what are they hiding?
That's a question for...
They got judge's order and they still won't turn over the info. They're cheating in every way possible. You remember when Nixon won and Reagan won, when they won like 49 states out of 50 and that kind of stuff, almost all 50 states and this and that. Ever since then, when Clinton got back in power, they've been cheating.
For them, we wonder the same things, but I'm not going to comment on what's going on in their heads. So that was part of the subpoena as well. And at first they told us that they had replaced all of that equipment and we're going to provide that equipment to the Senate.
I thought I'd put this all in one long video.
All new equipment in the McTech facility. And then when that didn't show up, they started talking about providing virtual access. And then after a week or 2 weeks almost of trying to get the virtual access, they now are coming up with this concern that it puts other agencies of the county or even federal governments at risk if they provide that information. So I'm not an IT expert.
They're just dragging their feet until they get back in
auditors
power.
and their IT experts work that out in conjunction with the Senate and the county.
Mm-hmm. And then one last question. Yesterday, Breitbart pointed out that Hannah Klein, the daughter of Biden's chief of staff, Ron Klain, Hannah Klain, signed the document going to the DOJ on behalf of the Brennan Center for Justice. Why do you think Biden's team is getting involved in the fight to stop this? What is Joe Biden hiding?
I wasn't aware of that connection, so I don't have a comment about
well, they should have known that.
President Biden is hiding something in this process or not. So,
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
Unbelievable.
Let them try to figure out what we did.
Watch them doing this.
Mom, why do you have to rip it off? Makes you feel better?
It's just so many times. I didn't want to try to pick it out and take it through stuff flat.
Oh.
We're gonna have a little campfire going.
That was 4 times.
What we have here is evidence. What we have there is evidence. Right? Let them figure that out.
Yes, but what I don't understand, and this makes me nervous, is why tapes were being thrown away. So what is...
No tapes were.
No, you guys have been throwing away tapes. So what tapes are you throwing away? Like, why?
Because they're unidentifiable. There's no way they could,
But it's been that way since the November election, so why would you throw anything away? Since you have to save it for 22 months.
Well, let's put it this way. Yes, there are tapes that are being tossed, but they are of no audit value. No
Well, 2020 mostly. Yes, Tammy. Most of this is from 2020, but some of it's going to be from a bit earlier and stuff. It's been happening a lot longer. The Dominion stuff, some of that's even before that they were talking about it. There was issues with it. Well, there's a lot of pressure on him to do something about the fraud there, Tammy. But I click on the wrong one. But hopefully this will help put pressure on and keep it up. I want to get this all recorded too, you know.
Let's talk about Harris County. Yes, that Harris County, the most liberal county here in the state of Texas. Well, Governor Greg Abbott just put them on notice. After a review of voter rolls, more than 100 illegal voter registrations were confirmed. People registering to vote using private P.O. Box-style addresses, which is flat out illegal under Texas law. But that's not all. The Secretary of State flagged another 126 registrations that now have to be reviewed. This didn't come out of nowhere. Harris County has a history of election problems. Abbott called them a repeat violator and warned that the county could be stripped of running its own elections. State takeover, possible criminal charges. That's how serious this is. So this isn't a mistake. This is what happens when a liberal county treats election law like a suggestion instead of a rule. Fix it or Texas will fix it for you. Funny how protected democracy always collapses the moment someone checks the math.
See, even some of it's happening in Texas, as long as you got a liberal county.
Joanne Warwick, she's the last one. We got time. She's going to attest that she have owned the house, has been abandoned for years, and she have voters registered there. She don't know who they is. Some of them became registered there actually after she got the house and after they was deceased. So
dead people voting.
Is it Miss Warren? Warwick, W-A-R-W-I-C-K. Warwick. Okay. Thank you for being here.
Well, I'm hoping this helps cause.
Good morning, everyone.
A stop to it, Tammy.
Just to give you a little bit of background, I used to work for Congressman John Conyers in Detroit and Washington, D.C.
Skipping around.
He was very concerned about voting rights. I was also in Washington, D.C. in 2000.
They're eventually going to steal your elections,
Does everyone
too.
Remember that?
Each time they
back then,
they try
the
to add more
Democrats
votes.
were
Try to add
against
more votes.
electronic voting machines and widespread absentee balloting for some obvious reasons.
Forget the
now, I have a
mail-in
lot
bailing.
more that I could say
That's
about
a
the
big
elections, about
fraud
Janice
there.
Winfrey not hiring people, not giving people reasons for not hiring them, not wanting me to work the electronic poll book, even though I speak French, Spanish, and I joke sometimes English. But what I'm here to talk to you about today is that after Ramon showed me this evidence, I was devastated. This year in my life, I realized I live in a banana republic. And
when it comes to elections,
I said, well, hey, because I own another house in Detroit. I bought this other house after I kept getting broken into where I live. Anyway, there's a lot of stories. Anyway.
Did you know that was going on there,
Ramon,
Tammy?
I said, hey,
in your
check
county?
to see if there's anybody registered to vote at my house. And there were, 4?
Yeah.
Now, one name I recognized. The other, I don't know. The one gentleman, if he were alive, he'd be about 110. And so Ramon kept saying to me, don't ignore the fake registrations, because that's the way they can inflate the number of potential voters so that they can say we had about a 50% turnout rate, et cetera.
Totally lying to us for years. Watch this one.
Filling out and submitting ballots from her former tenants.
In Franklin County, an apartment manager with access to ballots from former tenants allegedly abusing the system. This confirmed by Detective Andrew Gardner in his investigation.
I was able to identify several other ballots that look to be look to have characteristics on the signature line that were not consistent with the signatures on file.
Investigators say 4 ballots were illegally submitted, with 3 being counted in the 2024 general election. The outlier was rejected because of a mismatched signature.
This case is still open, and we are still collecting information from community members that may have been affected by this.
According to the sheriff's office, the woman admitted to voting all 4 ballots and forging the signatures. She was booked into Franklin County Jail for 12 felony charges related to...
Yeah, you need more of them booked in and that. That's the only way you're going to stop it.
The documents contain emails, allegedly from the senior vice president of the George Soros Open Society Foundation. He quotes a Clinton campaign advisor saying, quote,
"Open society, one world government.
It will be a long-term affair and
he
to
wants to control
demonize
that
Putin and
world
Trump."
government.
And adds that, quote, "Later, the FBI will put more oil into the fire," unquote. Other emails reveal Hillary Clinton approved the idea of tying Trump and Russia to election interference. And that was a scheme hoping the allegations would distract people from her own email scandal. These documents provide clear evidence that Hillary Clinton's campaign was behind the Russia hoax and that the FBI knew what the Clinton team was up to, acknowledging that the info they were receiving about the Trump campaign may have come from the Clinton camp. Despite this, the Obama intel community forged ahead with their 2017 assessment, concluding,
did you know that was going on, Tammy, in your area? That they were added like hundreds of extra voters that don't even exist.
That Russia aspired to help Trump win the election.
What they want to do is they want to make it, keep adding little by little, 100 here, 100 there, and that until you can't win your county, or, or your area. That's how they're doing it. They think that that they can get away with it, and they have been getting away with it. That's how they eventually turn areas blue that aren't really blue,
Good morning, everyone. District Attorney Heather Adams. On Tuesday afternoon, I was contacted by Krista Miller, who is our Chief Clerk of Elections, regarding potentially fraudulent voter registration applications that had recently been received by her office. At that time, she informed me that the Elections Office received approximately 2,500 applications at or near the deadline for registering to vote. While preparing to process these applications, staff noticed that numerous applications appeared to have the same handwriting, were filled out on the same day with unknown signatures, and some were previously registered voters, excuse me, and the signatures on file did not match the signatures on the application. So before I begin to summarize our preliminary findings, I must remind everyone that this is an ongoing investigation, and for that reason, I will be limited in the details that I can provide. Lancaster County detectives began investigating the voter registration applications and immediately found applications that were indeed fraudulent. Indicators of fraud included inaccuracies with the addresses listed on the applications, false personal identification information, as well as false names. A number of the applications also contained names that did not match the provided Social Security information.
Acceptance of counterfeit ballots wasn't just relegated to Dominion tabulators in Arizona. In Alabama, a citizen went across the street and printed a ballot image on notebook paper. The machine accepted and tabulated the votes on every single ballot.
So in other words, you can make copies of one ballot and send them through.
Just send them through.
So this is why we need to be watching to make sure.
So part of that I couldn't hear well. Hopefully everyone else did.
Yes, well, he is listed as its former Admiral Peter Neffinger, or retired Admiral Peter Neffinger. He is president and on the board of directors of Smartmatic. And it just so happens he's on Mr. Biden's presidential transition team that's going to be non-existent because we're fixing to overturn the results of the election in multiple states. And President Trump won by not just hundreds of thousands of votes, but by millions of votes that were shifted by this software that was designed expressly for that purpose. We have sworn witness testimony of why the software was designed. It was designed to rig elections. He was fully briefed on it. He saw it happen in other countries. It was exported internationally for profit by the people that are behind Smartmatic and Dominion. They did this on purpose. It was calculated. They've done it before. We have evidence from 2016 in California. We have so much evidence, I feel like it's coming in through a fire hose.
Wow. And then some, I bet.
Well, tonight, the Justice Department is now suing Fulton County to get access to ballots from the 2020 election. It is the latest move in a long dispute.
And they dragged their feet. Finally, would you believe they're starting to get it years later?
Between President Donald Trump and Georgia election officials. Trump still claims widespread fraud impacted the 2020 election, but multiple recounts in Fulton County confirm President Joe Biden's narrow win. DOJ is now asking a federal judge to intervene after the state elections board said Fulton County refused to comply with a subpoena seeking election materials. Those include all used and void ballots, signature envelopes, and digital files. The county says ballots are sealed and require a court order to be released. We asked Fulton County election officials for comment. They said they do not comment on pending lawsuits.
Just an excuse not to talk.
We went and looked at a few of their clinics. My staff did, not me personally. And we decided we didn't want to affiliate with them. And I got written up in a blog as being racist.
Really?
So anytime you go out and you...
That's in the wrong folder. Okay, I'll have to move that later. Let me delete this one. Okay, let's get back to the fraud.
No voting system is perfect. Here are the heads of the top 3 voting systems telling Congress as much.
Is there any method of voting that's 100% secure?
No.
No. They go on to say their voting systems are mostly safe. But here's a Senate letter from December 2019 slamming these 3 companies. Election security experts have noted for years that our nation's election systems and infrastructure are under serious threat. The Senate letter then highlights how the top 3 voting systems, ES&S, Hart InterCivic, and Dominion voting systems, quote, have long skimped on security in favor of convenience, leaving voting systems across the country prone to security problems. The lawmakers who wrote this letter? None other than Senators Elizabeth Warren, Amy Klobuchar, Ron Wyden, and Congressman Mark Pocan, all Democrats.
Isn't that convenient?
1 year later, now that America is asking whether Dominion tampered with our votes in Joe Biden's favor, where are these Democrats now? In the last 2 years, Dominion aggressively marketed itself to every state in the union. And while Georgia went all in and lived to regret it, one state gave it a Texas-sized thumbs down. Upon testing Dominion machines and its accompanying systems, the state of Texas concluded Dominion was too, quote, fragile and error-prone and could not be trusted for safe and secure elections. So what makes the machines fragile and error-prone? Ron Watkins, a large systems data analyst, tells One American News after over a week poring over Dominion user guides, he was stunned by how easily ballots could be accessed by one person with access to one machine.
With the Dominion system, you need to be most concerned about activist IT people. The operators system, in my opinion, have way too much power to control the internal features and settings of the system.
Just reading the Dominion manual, Watkins says he understands the system enough to devise an alarming number of ways to alter vote counts across an entire precinct using Dominion.
I was looking at this manual with the mindset of a penetration tester. An administrator would have the ability to delete ballots, reset counts, delete entire batches, etc. There's a lot of things that they can do.
Watkins notes, while there are legitimate reasons for such controls, there's no mention as to whether there's a way to track or hold users accountable for deleting or altering ballots.
Dominion will train between 2 to 6 workers per county who are appointed by the county to undergo election systems training. These 2 to 6 workers are trusted to not tamper with the final tabulation and counts while transferring data between the ICC, which is the ImageCast central tabulation software, and the county. So this transfer process is literally just dragging some folders on a Windows computer onto a flash drive, then physically handing the flash drive to the county. What I want to know is, during this handoff, are these people being watched by auditors or to make sure this flash drive isn't switched out for something else? Are these folders being dragged correctly onto the flash drive? Has the data been altered before or after it's been handed off?
This is where the security problem magnifies.
We got to push and voter ID
who logged into the tabulation machine to drag the correct votes onto the flash drive. Are they dragging all the votes? Theoretically, you could swap the flash drive for a different flash drive. There's no accountability there. And then once the county commissioner or whoever accepts that
flash
drive,
can be
do you
hacked
trust
too.
them to not go in and edit the contents before they report it?
As Georgia underwent its recount 2 weeks after Election Day, flash drives were found with uncounted ballots on them. Over 2,700 votes had been forgotten in the initial count. 1,500 of those votes were for Donald Trump. 1,100 for Biden.
I wonder how that happened.
So another issue
they always go one
keys.
way, don't they?
The keys to the
They always
machine
go one
are
way.
digital devices. It's unclear what the device is. It might be like an RFID device or USB or something, but it is clear that it's a digital device that holds some kind of cryptographic key on it. If you lose this physical key to the machine, then you lose absolute security of the entire precinct. Say Philadelphia was storing these keys in a warehouse and they were robbed and the only thing stolen were these keys and a laptop, then you should consider their entire election to be illegitimate because they have lost the physical security of the system.
That's just what happened in Philadelphia 1 month before Election Day.
Philadelphia police are investigating after somebody broke into an election machine warehouse and stole a laptop and a USB drive. The theft happened last night at the warehouse on the 3500 block of Scotts Lane in East Falls.
Officials were quick to declare this theft had nothing to do with the election and was not malicious at all. An odd declaration. You don't catch the criminal, but you decide you know their motive? Interesting judicial logic, Philadelphia. Meanwhile,
local reporter posted this video on social media where he's seen walking around that same warehouse without being
AI
noticed.
will decide.
Whoever stole those keys in Philadelphia has admin access. Do you trust a random thief who has administrative access to
they'll
the
try
voting?
anyway
They could have theoretically been able to make as many keys as they
what
want.
we've been able to do
on
is
election night,
outvote
Donald Trump
the
led Joe
cheating.
Biden by 800,000 votes. Major precincts reporting. In the dead of
Once
night,
they get total
that lead
control, like
disappeared.
California,
Biden
Illinois,
overtook
and
Trump
New York,
and took the whole
they
state
have
of
such
Pennsylvania by
control,
60,000 votes.
you can't outvote
That
it.
60,000 vote bump
It's almost
came from the
impossible.
very Philadelphia county in which the drive and laptop had been stolen. Watkins' list of
Some
concerns
third world
about
countries
Dominion's
have better voting
vulnerabilities
systems
went
than
on.
we do.
Watkins
Fairer
found it
elections.
strange that algorithms for ballots with just one candidate on it, called an undervote, were so complicated. And it is unclear what happens to these ballots.
The computer may or may not throw out your vote.
Another concern, right after the 2018 midterms, Pennsylvania made a custom request. They requested Dominion change the system to read a straight Republican or straight Democrat ballot, but oddly, read an individual candidate separately from the rest of the straight ticket choices below.
I looked at the font they're using, and it's part of the Arial family of fonts, ARIAL, which is a sans serif font. And with this font family, a capital I and a lowercase l are nearly indistinguishable on a piece of paper. The person who designs the ballot and the race could theoretically put Donald Trump in the Republican Party, not the Republican Party. And that would be a capital I instead of the L. And then everybody else on the Republican Party would just be in the normal Republican Party. In that situation, if you vote just straight party for the
sneaky
Republicans,
little way to do that.
then Trump would not get a vote. And there are I've been hearing a lot of issues of Trump performing poorly in heavily Republican areas.
Next, Watkins says the machines are not supposed to connect to the internet, but there don't seem to be physical safeguards against connecting to internet through the store-bought laptops.
If even one of these computers was connected to the internet, like if one election worker said, oh, I'm going to look at TikTok videos for the next hour for my break, then the entire precinct is compromised.
But even these concerns were minor compared to what Watkins shared with us next. Dominion's algorithm for handling an anomaly, that is, a stray mark or bleed through from a Sharpie pen.
So this is the big one that I'm most concerned about. If the scanning system detects any anomaly on your ballot, then you are not counted.
The biggest red flag about Dominion was its algorithm where ballots with anomalies, bleed-throughs or stray marks, are set aside and not counted.
What happens when your vote is not counted? due to an anomaly, then a scan of your ballot gets saved into a folder on the ICC, the ImageCast Central Tabulation System. This allows
but they won't hand over those
2 to 6 people who are trained by Dominion to go through the folder of anomalies and either delete or verify each of the ballots inside the folder. I believe it's called vote adjudication. These workers can theoretically see which candidates have been marked as votes on these anomalous ballots before they are verified and officially cast. So it's possible they could, in theory, handpick a certain party's vote to be verified while throwing out all the others.
But it's the next point that stuns Watkins most.
The biggest issue here is that the system for detecting anomalies can be set up by altering gamma settings on the scanner so that every ballot has an anomaly. This, in effect, by altering gamma settings on the scanner so that every ballot has an anomaly. This, in effect, allows those 2 to 6 trained people to go through and hand check every single ballot before they are verified and cast into the tabulation system as an actual vote. That last point explains to me how certain candidates can get 130,000 votes at once with 0 votes going to the other candidate. It explains to me how or why vote workers in places like Arizona might have given Sharpies to certain voters because they might have wanted that specific vote to be caught by the anomaly system and hand verified at a later time.
Watkins says this is a task for the feds.
My recommendation is for data forensics teams, federal data forensics teams, to seize or subpoena the ICC ImageCast Central Vote Tabulation machines, which are just Windows 10 off-the-shelf machines. Go through and see how many votes hit or how many votes arrived into the folder which is specifically set up for anomalies. This one bug has to affect an entire election. And it's not even a bug, this is a feature.
One that would allow enormous batches by the hundreds of thousands to be decided on by a few unmonitored workers.
Your vote doesn't matter in these districts with the Dominion machines in them because these 2 to 6 people trained by Dominion have ultimate control. It doesn't take a genius to realize that setting the gamma levels incorrectly makes all the battle become anomalies, which you can then go through later and adjudicate. If I was Trump, I would investigate those 2 to 6 people per county first.
Watkins is of the opinion any competent hacker, thief, or paid-off poll worker could game the Dominion system and alter hundreds of thousands of votes. But a bigger question lurks. To what extent was this actually designed by the top on purpose? In September 2020, FEC United founder Joe Oltmann had infiltrated Antifa to uncover journalists who were active members of the Antifa group attacking his company in Colorado. Joe, you infiltrated an Antifa conference call this past September and accidentally came upon a top Dominion voting systems executive named Eric Coomer. Describe that call and what it led you to find.
It was interesting how the call started. Somebody says, "Who's Eric?" He says, "Eric's Dominion guy." Someone actually said,
"Is my camera out on your end, or is it just my end?"
I told him to continue speaking. And someone interrupts and says, "What are we going to do if effing Trump wins?" And Eric responds, and I'm paraphrasing this, by the way, "Don't worry about the election. Trump is not going to win. I made effing sure of that." And then they started laughing, and somebody says effing right. And so I just put a simple Google search to start, which was Eric
I'm there.
Dominion,
hopefully you can hear me.
Denver, Colorado.
My camera's doing its thing.
Eric Coomer came up immediately under Dominion voting systems.
Turns out Eric Coomer held a top position at Dominion. With a PhD in nuclear physics, Coomer joined Dominion as vice president of engineering and holds several patents with Dominion, ensuring users can adjudicate ballots from the machines. The very function Ron Watkins pointed out as a huge red flag. After the election, Oltmann was sent an article highlighting Eric Coomer from Dominion. Oltmann started looking into Eric again. Eric was the director of strategy and security at Dominion and a shareholder in the company.
When I got into his Facebook page, that's when things really started to kind of come together for me that Eric Coomer was this, that he was not just Antifa, he was responsible for putting his finger on the scales of our election.
And Dominion seemed to be a friendly place for such anti-Trump sentiment. Coomer goes on to travel to battleground states all of 2019.
Whatever they were building to coming into the 2020 election, that he made sure it happened. He made sure that that Dominion Voting Systems was in all the battleground states for the 2020 election.
Eric shared 3 folders of screenshots capturing the disturbing profile of Eric Coomer, starting back in the 2016 election.
So this is a rant. He says rant, Facebook friend land open call. If you're planning to vote for this autocratic, narcissistic, fascist, asshat blowhard and his Christian jihadist VP pick, unfriend me now. No, I'm not joking. I'm not for reason, political discourse, and healthy debate.
You could see how he started to just become unhinged. So he actually talks about the fact that his work has the same mentality that he has towards being anti-Trump.
Oltmann shares over 80 images of posts Coomer shared on his pages. The Antifa Manifesto, songs like Dead Prez, Body Count, Cop Killer, F the USA. Once Oltmann begins the expose, Coomer panics.
He locked down everything. He scraped the internet of everything having Eric Coomer on it. So they even went into lead candy. Dominion took him off their website, removed him from the board position on their site. They've literally made Eric Coomer a ghost.
As we were putting this investigation together, the public listings of employees for Dominion were fast dwindling from public purview. But we also came upon a friend of Coomer, a woman named Penelope Chester Starr. She works at Dominion too. As communications director, her resume reads Clinton Foundation and vice president of the Bill and Hillary Clinton cash cow, Teneo. Teneo booked Bill Clinton speaking engagements. Chester Starr also organizes anti-Trump rallies in Canada. These are just 2 Dominion employees of dozens more with clear anti-Trump allegiances. In Coomer's case, he was in a position of power to actually act upon his rage against Trump and Trump voters. What does he mean when he says, Trump won't win, I made effing sure of that? Nothing? According to DHS's former cybersecurity director, Chris Krebs, this was our most secure election in history. Nothing to see here. Incidentally, Krebs's now infamous most secure election in history memo was co-written with the endorsement of the Election Commission. Dominion is on that commission. Dare we dig deeper?
There should never be another election conducted in this country, I don't care if it's for local dog catcher, using a Dominion machine and Smartmatic software. We've got to have an American company that uses paper ballots that we can all verify, so every one of us
Giuliani
can see
in jail
that our vote is our vote.
In the early 2000s, the election technology market had over 20 competitors. 20 years later, Dominion and 2 others dominate the voting technology market in America. This is a problem, especially if their Antifa-drenched engineers are hell-bent on deleting half of America's voice. If they're saying this in the open, what are they saying behind closed doors? In 2014, Dominion partnered with the Clinton Foundation. Dominion admits this, but assures all, their partnership with the Clinton Foundation has nothing to do with how Dominion tabulates votes across America. Go ahead, believe them. Big media, big tech, and big government demand that you do. Meanwhile, citizens like Joe Oltmann, analysts like Ron Watkins, news outlets like OAN, and lawyers like Sidney Powell will keep asking the questions
that way,
the
if you
FBI
had serial numbers on them, you couldn't
to, and the left
keep
demands
scanning
you ignore.
over and over and over again the same ballots. They've done that, Tammy. They've scanned the same ballots over and over again several times. Then they want you should have all digital images. It's totally a great idea. And it should have, every ballot should have your signature on it too. Even if you vote in person, the signature should be on the ballot as well. So you can do the matchup thing, have someone come in. Did you really do this vote later? Like when they do them by the thousands and all that kind of stuff. Okay, I got one from, this is Arizona. Well, Katie Hobbs, remember with the Kerry Lake and all this and that? Katie Hobbs was the one that was doing the counting of the vote and coming back and all that crap. Unbelievable. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Let me know if you can't. Well, you wouldn't be able. Let me know that you can, I should say. Here, it's a little bit longer. I'm going to scan a little bit through it as
Thank
it goes.
you so much for coming. You're very brave.
This is the hearings about this stuff.
My question is, and I guess it's a question for clarity, how this is, in my opinion, related to the election is what you're stating is potentially many people, elected officials here, have potentially been bribed or blackmailed to get certain election results. And I think the people have the right to hear that.
John, you can hear me, I guess.
Because the people in Arizona right now crave truth.
Serial number, Tammy, is a great idea.
Absolutely. Yes,
Great
you
idea.
are. Absolutely. And that is exactly why I'm here today. I think that we have gone round and round and round with the concept of election integrity, but nobody is willing to actually speak the truth of how did our election get compromised, and as in nuts and bolts, what happened to actually compromise our elections and compromise the integrity of our state.
Beginning in 2017, the access points have been used to change vote totals and thereon election results. Illegal transfers have been made and provided to Runback and Jeff Ellison. The phony deeds used in the scheme to move money to candidates are created by Brittany. For-profit and non-profit PACs are also created by Brittany and used to move money for candidates. During the 22 election, ballot scanners, printers at 70 precincts suffered changes to their printer settings, despite being tested the night before the election. The changes in those settings were made through computer infiltration, not manually or by some never-before seen error. The uncontrollable ballots were placed in box 3 and allegedly driven to Runback. Witness information provided on October 2020 confirms that more than 100,000 filled-in ballots and more than $13 million were identified by some of our investigators in 2 unmarked rental cars. These vans were loaded with the ballots and cash at a private residence in Mesa and driven to Runback's office. The Runback Company, as you know, is operated by Robert Runback. We have found deeds for Runback. This was a planned loss. Hobbs would receive the Democratic nomination for governor and Fontes would run for Secretary of State to replace Hobbs. The strategy appeared to have been planned. I have shown you that both Hobbs and Fontes have what we call Brittany deeds, evidencing a strong likelihood that they are bribed recipients. Now, it may seem obvious, but I do feel that it's necessary to explain nonetheless. Given that Arizona is a border state and that drug smuggling and human trafficking is a billion-dollar business, it would appear that having our elected and appointed officials ensure that the cartel enterprise remain open for business would be paramount. The cartel invests substantially to ensure that the right people are in key positions so as to further their objectives. The fix for 2020 and for 2022 started in 2017 with appointment to election positions of individuals being bribed through the mortgage scheme and through monies being laundered by the appointment of phantom individuals. The problems with these documents are many.
The title of her report is Preliminary Findings of Activities Impacting Arizona's Election Integrity with specific focus on the 2020 and 2022 general elections.
Something with my camera.
Title of her report is Preliminary Findings of Activities Impacting Arizona's Election Integrity with specific focus on the 2020 and 2022 general elections.
Can't wait for that Katie Hobbs to be gone.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Good afternoon to everyone.
So I haven't watched
my name is Jacqueline Greger.
much of this.
And speak real close to them.
Sorry.
That's okay. So the folks in Sholo can hear you.
So we're seeing it together.
I don't know if they want to.
More Prescott.
Just
Sometimes
to tell you a
it
little
just
bit
kicks
about
back
myself,
on the camera.
I do have a master's degree in marketing, honors degrees in financial accounting, business statistics, economics, and business strategy. So I've been a resident of Scottsdale, Arizona since 1997, and I own the Feinbrader Insurance Agency, which is a farmers insurance agency in the Valley. Since 2019, I've been a principal investigator with the Harris Thaler law firm. We have been investigating multiple multi-state racketeering and corruption. John Harris
Yeah, I wonder if some of these laws would be under RICO.
And he is in charge of this investigation. Mr. Thaler has been practicing law for 32 years. His firm specializes in investigating racketeering and corruption for both the public and the private sector. And he has participated in some of the largest investigations, both in the US and abroad. But with respect to the current matter at hand, in 2006, the US Attorney's Office in Illinois, Idaho, and Indiana investigated the laundering of drug cartel monies through a complex series of single-family home purchases in those particular states. By 2009, numerous real estate agents, escrow companies, and title insurers had been indicted, charged, and convicted of racketeering. And in 2014, our office was asked to review the case file. The reason for this was we were asked to determine whether monies from the sale of the properties had filtered to properties purchased in Arizona, specifically in Maricopa and Pima County. We concluded that several real estate agents convicted in Iowa had set up laundering systems in Arizona, and thereafter had transferred the proceeds of sales to the Panamanian
Arizona is one of the worst states. They're one of the worst
in 2018, Mr. Thaler discovered, incidental to a completely independent matter, a series of trust deeds evidencing that cash laundered through single-family residences in Arizona was pervasive and ongoing. With that, a new investigation began, with the focus being on money laundered and related racketeering activities in Maricopa County, and as well as in several other Arizona's counties. We are currently representing several parties directly damaged by these racketeering activities.
Yeah, you're
the investigation originally focused on fake notarizations, fake deeds of trust, fraudulent buyers and or sellers of the real property transactions, as well as other companies used in real estate transactions, such as real estate brokers, mortgage companies, title and escrow companies, real estate inspection companies, service companies, and so on. Over 120,000 documents have been reviewed to date. These documents have definitely evidenced multiple racketeering enterprises, which include narcotic sales, money laundering, tax evasion, payroll theft, bankruptcy fraud, life insurance fraud, auto insurance fraud, bribing of elected and appointed officials, creating and modifying public record, falsifying professional licenses and related credentials, swatting individuals who pose a threat to these enterprises, and last but not least, election.
Might as well have the cartels, huh?
I walked in and heard briefly that you spoke about a compromised computer system. Well, that is something we will be addressing. I will be addressing in quite some detail. I'm going to share with you that which we've uncovered, how we uncovered it, and the conclusions drawn therefrom. I'll also share with you how the racketeering enterprises inextricably are intertwined with election fraud. It is important to note, that our office has been limited in resources and in terms of authority, such as subpoena power. As a result, the conclusions that I'm bringing here to you that we've reached to date are just the tip of the iceberg. As a result, our office stands ready to work with any of the relevant enforcement agencies. Our primary findings were first reported to Governor Ducey in 2022. Furthermore, Thaler has met with attorney generals in 5 states, the FBI, the IRS, the U.S. bankruptcy trustee, and with several U.S. attorneys' offices. Currently, there are active and ongoing investigations in federal and state jurisdictions, and both California and New Mexico have already used our report and taken some corrective action. The final report will include the election fraud and will be completed and published as a book entitled Report to the Governor. This is going to be a book of 300 pages with approximately 3,000 attachments. Excerpts from this book and other necessary documentation will be available on reporttothegovernor.com after this presentation. Our report contains 47 separate findings. I have provided you with a packet, and I do apologize that my system failed to number the pages, but in pages 11 to 14 detail those 47 findings that we had in our report. I am going to just mention a few of those that are very pertinent to this committee. As I mentioned, beginning in Illinois, Idaho, and Iowa, in the early 80s, cash earned or otherwise collected in the sale of illegal narcotics and human trafficking activities conducted by the Sinaloan cartel had been laundered through the purchase of single-family residences. Laundering of this cartel money in Arizona through purchase and sale of the single-family residence began in and about 1994 and focused on new construction, particularly in Santan Valley, Litchfield Park, Goodyear, and Avonmore. Cartel monies mostly came from illicit narcotic sales, which include crystal meth, cocaine, heroin, and fentanyl, as well as human trafficking. In addition to purchase and sales of single-family residents, cash is laundered through inflated and falsified construction invoices, falsified charitable donations, tuitions paid on fake students allegedly attending private trade schools, and falsified bankruptcies. Wells Fargo bankers in Arizona and in multiple additional states have engaged in opening, checking, and direct deposit accounts for phantom people. Resources, including city government officials and agencies in Mesa, Arizona has also been integral in the laundering activities. Since 2010, money laundering has exceeded $7.5 billion. In Arizona, laundered cash is used in part to bribe elected and appointed public officials and their support staff.
They buy off the
principal
judges.
Preparers of the documents necessary to effect the racketeering enterprise are Donna Ray Chavez, a resident of Mesa, and her daughter, Brittany Ray Chavez. To date, more than 10,000 falsified documents have been recorded with the Maricopa County Recorder's Office. We estimate that more than 35,000 warranty deeds and trust deeds evidencing fraudulent transactions exist in the database. The number of falsified notarizations exceeds over 15,000. Donna and Brittany participate in racketeering activities, which also include facilitating the bribes to the public officials, tax evasion, payroll theft, bankruptcy fraud, insurance fraud, and extortion. The city of Mesa is a racketeering organization, as that term is defined in 18 U.S.C. Section 1961. To protect the enterprise, civil rights are systematically and systemically violated to preserve racketeering activities. Fines and outrageous cash bonds are used to collect monies, which are then skimmed and redirected into the racketeering enterprises. The City of Mesa Police Department operates within it a private police department that is used to support and protect racketeering enterprises. Officers participating in this force are compensated with monies paid through the phony mortgage schemes and other related schemes. Officers operating within this private force systemically violate our Fourth Amendment rights by breaking and entering into private properties, wiretapping, computer hacking, cell phone hacking, and by using related surveillance techniques without warrant. Officers also plant evidence and hide exculpatory evidence. Multiple state agency databases have been infiltrated or hacked, thus allowing falsified documents to be uploaded into them and allowing legitimate documents to be removed. For example, the database for the University of Arizona, Arizona State, and Northern Arizona have been infiltrated and hacked. It permits individuals to be given degrees who never attended or graduated from these schools and allows phantom individuals to be awarded degrees, thus lending legitimacy to their existence.
Also fake voters.
Further, state licensing databases have been infiltrated and hacked to permit individuals with fake degrees to permit phantom individuals to have state licenses issued. And these licenses, like accounting,
You see, they're charging us for college students that don't even exist. They're charging fees and stuff to the government.
Real estate, mental health care.
That's at these colleges.
Even law licenses. We have seen phantom attorneys registered with the state bar. The Maricopa County database for the Recorder's Office and for the Superior Court were designed in 2014. They were set up for outside infiltration so that falsified documents could be uploaded.
With all this cheating, how come it takes them so long to count votes there too?
Or legitimate documents removed. Since 2015, hundreds upon hundreds of falsified court documents have been loaded into the database. These documents include falsified default judgments, criminal restitution orders, child support orders, all of these used in swatting activities against individuals posing a threat to the racketeering activities. Since 2004, elections within Pima County and Maricopa County have been manipulated through the infiltration of the county databases, resulting from bribes paid to executives at election service providers, including, but not limited to, principals
now,
of
back in
Runbeck Election
2020,
Services.
21, 22, even 23.
In addition
you couldn't
to impacting local
play
elections,
a video
bribes and infiltration were used to affect the outcome of the
YouTube or
races
Facebook
during the November
about
3rd,
election stealing.
2020 election, including the outcome of the race for Maricopa County Recorder and the outcome of the November 8th, 2022 election, race for Governor, Secretary of State, and Attorney General. Public officials who have received bribes include multi-state office holders, State House and State Senate, local office holders, county supervisors, judges in the Maricopa Supreme Court, judges of some city courts, including 2 presiding judges, judges' assistants, prosecutors within certain cities within Maricopa County, prosecutors for Maricopa County, peripheral legal specialists, including attorneys, approved mental health care providers, as in court-appointed advisors and related specialists. In the Superior Court of Maricopa County and Pinal County and Pima County, at least 25% of the active judges have accepted bribes in exchange for protecting the racketeering activities. Bribe payments generally begin before the individual is even appointed to the bench. Bribes are usually paid as an incentive for the attorney to leave their private practice. By way of example, Mesa City Prosecutor's Office routinely files charges and convicts innocent individuals who knowingly or unwittingly pose a threat to the racketeering enterprise. With respect to judges in the Mesa City Court, Judge Tatz, Judge Alicia Lawler preside over these invented cases filed by the city prosecutor, falsely convicting and sentencing the defendant. In the Maricopa County Superior Court Family Division, child custody evaluators, commonly known as court-appointed advisors, routinely accept bribes in exchange for favorable reports. Bribes are often facilitated by attorneys representing one party. But let me explain. As I stated earlier, in 2018, Mr. Thaler found trustees recorded with the Maricopa County Recorder Office, evidencing money laundering and tax evasion. These documents, as I mentioned, were prepared by both Brittany and Donna Chavez. Both of them are connected to the real estate agents suspected of setting up the home purchasing laundering systems in Arizona. Their principal employer was and is the Sinaloan Cartel. Today, we know that their participation in the creation of documents necessary for the criminal enterprise runs more than 25 years and includes facilitating bribes to public officials. Our initial discovery included more than 100 fake trustees and warranty deeds in Maricopa County, where either Brittany or Don executed the document as either buyer or seller, or as the notary under an assumed name. At least half these documents purported to be executed by married individuals. The discovery of the falsified deeds led to the discovery of additional racketeering enterprises, including, but not limited to, as I've mentioned, insurance fraud, payroll fraud, and bankruptcy fraud. It also led to the discovery of the extortion schemes I've already mentioned. Maricopa County Recorder's Office has at least 5 appointments made by Adrian Fontes, our county recorder, from 2017 to 2021 who are phantoms.
They have their own people on the inside.
Individuals. These phantom individuals hold positions related to election services. Further, during the same period, the office has at least 15 individuals whose appointments were falsified and thereafter kept hidden from the public during the 2020 election cycle. The appointment documents for all of the above individuals have forged signatures, falsified clerical signatures, which means that the tracings from from a signature stamp, and fake dates. These falsified notarizations were made by Brittany. Said falsified clerical signature and date were made by Donna Childs. I'll be sharing examples of this in a few minutes. In addition to election fraud, manipulation of the city and county databases include falsified default judgments, restitution orders, child custody orders, and so on, as I've explained.
More investigative
Brittany and
reports
Donna
on
have
this.
also been able to forge signatures of judges. Well, that summarizes the findings, at least those that pertain to you guys, of the book. But as I stated, the parameters of our investigation did not originally include election fraud. It's important to note that we do not represent any political candidate, political party, or political action committee, or any similar organization or individual. Mr. Thaler himself did not vote in 2022. He's not donated to any party. In November 2019, Brittany approached Mr. Thaler and his colleague, attorney John J. Stanley, with a request that they obtain for her WITSEC protection. However, prior to obtaining approval, Brittany was threatened in such a manner that she broke off direct communications with our office. She has continued to surreptitiously provide evidence concerning these criminal activities. In October 2020, shortly before the November 3rd election, Thaler was provided certain information. First was evidence that the Maricopa County computer database had been designed with various backdoors, allowing us outsiders to infiltrate it and to change the data. Second was the identities of bribed recipients, which included
I think they left them
and third,
in many ways
on October 26, 2020, Thaler's team discovered approximately 25,000 falsified ballots being held with a significant sum of cash in a private residence in Mesa, rented.
That's why it took them till at least Friday to call that race.
I do have a declaration in your packet that you've been provided detailing that. The investigation into election fraud is not limited to the state of Arizona. However, where Arizona is concerned, a plethora of individuals are implicated in the fraud, including elected and appointed officials, and as I've already mentioned, Runbeck Election Services, the service provider to Maricopa County. The Maricopa County database has absolutely no integrity whatsoever. Let me explain. I chose to share with you my investigation of Katie Hobbs by way of example. But for purposes of this exercise, I could have pretty much selected any of those individuals that are listed on your page, in your packets on page 70. I apologize if you don't have a page, but you'll see that it's near the end of the book. When our investigation leads to a name of a particular individual that we suspect to be involved in this racketeering activity, these racketeering activities, we research their deeds of trust, which are recorded with the Maricopa County Recorder's Office and publicly available. If there is an unusual amount of deeds of trust for that individual, and if there are deeds of trust for the same or similar named individual, or with multiple varying middle initials, we dig further. In the case of Caitlin Hobbs, please look at page 17 through 50 in your packet. I have shared with you 11 deeds of trust in the name of Kathleen M. Hobbs and Patrick T. Goodman. However, when we looked at the deeds in your packet on page 51 to 64, these have similar names, but we discovered that they too were compromised. In some cases, we review deeds of trust filed under a spouse or a child, a parent or business partner, just depending on the specific circumstances. When the writings match that of Brittany and Donna, we can determine that when we can determine that the notarization is fraudulent and or the buyer and or the seller signatures are fake, we know the deed is fraudulent. If you look at the deeds for Kathleen M. Hobbs and Patrick D. Goodman, I have provided you with the first signed pages of the deeds. And on page 65 is a comparison of just the signatures, okay, the pages with some red writing in there, for the buyers of each deed. This page will speak for itself. There's obviously some inconsistencies with the signatures for Kathleen and for Patrick. This is apparent to anyone with any naked eye, but we have verified all our findings with a qualified forensic document expert who represents the state of California. Now, let's look at the notaries who signed these deeds. Again, I provided you with a page of all the notary signatures on page 66. Next to this, I provided you with references to pages from our reports that we have from our qualified forensic document expert, where similar writings have been verified as either being that of Brittany or Donna. The only other option is in some situations, there are graphics or traces of other signatures, where we can verify that an imposter has attempted to copy an original signature. Linda Mitchell's reports are lengthy. We have over 500 pages in reports. So unfortunately, unless I was going to walk in here with stacks like this for each of you, I could not bring those and give you each a copy, but they will be available to you if anyone wants to email me a request. On page 67, I've demonstrated some other writings on the deeds, which have also matched with pages from our forensic reports. What I provided you on page 68 to 69 is where we delve even further. When you look at the deeds, you will notice that there is a title company and a mortgage company. As is pretty evident, the writings on the document filed with the Corporation
So they were stealing land, really.
Is also that of Brittany or Don. To summarize our findings with regards to Governor Katie Hobbs, taking into account just those documents in her name are as follows. There are 9 deeds of trust in the name of Kathleen M. Hobbs and Patrick T. Goodman, husband and wife, from 1997 to 2021, which essentially means that they either purchased or refinanced a home every 2 to 3 years, which is not statistically not likely, not improbable, but even more so when 6 of the 9 deeds of trust were recorded within the 10-year period between 97 and 2007, the concentration of which is between 2001 and 2005, which was during Ms. Hobbs' tenure at Emerge, Arizona. When researching the documents filed with the Corporation Commission for Emerge, Arizona, we found that these documents evidence hand signing and hand printing that belongs to Brittany and or Donna. If one were to guess, and this is just a guess on our part, Emerge Arizona seems to have been formed as a medium to attract women interested in politics and bribe them through the proper scheme to adopt positions of power and to further the goals and objectives of the cartel. Most of these deeds
all this evidence and nothing is being done,
meaning that one or multiple parties
I guess
the transaction are either not
supposedly
or do not exist at all.
Gave her a subpoena.
In some, if not all cases, it's evident by page 65
not,
in your packet. Ms. Hobbs and Mr. Goodman's signatures are clearly
in front
inconsistent,
of the
indicating
House
that the majority
like
of the deeds were created by a different individual.
I doubt we'll see in her
who are attempting to copy Hobbs and Goodman's signatures, particularly on the deeds where the notarizations have been found to be fake.
I think she
then
declined to testify, sort of like the Clintons with the House thing.
On these deeds of trust. Some of these do not or have never existed.
This
Some
hearing
do not even
isn't
exist in Arizona.
It's in front of the state House.
Can I ask you
committee.
to please submit one of these packets to the pages so we can get this put in the record, and then we are going to have to tighten this up and keep it germane to elections so we don't exceed the scope of
Well, there's a lot of it getting the people to know, for one, don't vote for the witch again. That's for sure.
Would you like me to finish with my conclusions with that?
How much?
No, none of them been disversified. The thing is to stop it from happening again.
Let me finish on this example, and then I will go on to
no handcuffs. I know, not yet, anyways.
Okay, so when I said we researched the
Democrats have this way of dragging things out until they get back in power, and then it goes away. They have a good.
What can we conclude by these discoveries? Purpose of having a fake deed of trust
because you don't have the media on top
without it being traceable. A phony mortgage company provides a phony mortgage as the one primary method by which cash is moved.
Some of them are in on it. What some videos I'm going to play tomorrow?
If the buyer does not exist,
which I'm pretty sure John has seen about him buying off judges,
then the mortgage
so that people can get Social Security numbers and vote and all that kind of stuff, get their immigration status passed and all that. It is disgraceful. I agree. Their game plan is often to drag the thing out until they get back in power.
Then that's even more further proof that money is being provided that is untraceable. I can take you through example after example, but in interest of time, since at least 2004, ballot counts have been tampered with. Our county's current computer database, which was built between 2014 and 15, has been and continues to be infiltrated and hacked. Its architects specifically designed the system with multiple backdoor entry points. These points permit the uploading of falsified documents and the removal of genuine documents from the county system. We have seen Brittany access the database and have an eyewitness to testify for that. Over the past 15 years, Brittany has used her access to load falsified judgments and so on.
Yeah, Brennan. Let me bring it up on the screen so I can see it better.
Beginning in 2017, the access points have been used to change vote totals and thereon election results. Illegal transfers.
See, they were running up the statute of limitations on them too. That was part of the problem.
Anderson. The phony deeds used in the scheme to move money to candidates are created by
DOJ's office was on their
for-profit
side.
and non-profit PACs are also created
So he
by
was dragging his feet on filing it until the last minute, and then I got too late.
During the 22 election, ballot scanners, printers at 70 precincts suffered changes to their printer settings.
We got to replace a lot of
despite being
DOJs.
tested the night before the election.
A lot of them
the
are
changes
Soros
in those settings were made through computer infiltration, not manually or by some never-before seen error. The uncontrollable ballots were placed in box 3 and allegedly driven to Runbeck. Witness information provided on October 2020 confirms that more than 100,000 files filled in ballots and more than $13 million were identified by some of our investigators in 2 unmarked rental cars.
Unmarked rental cars.
These vans were loaded with the ballots and cash at a private residence in Mesa. And
ballots and cash.
The Runbeck company, as you know, is operated by Robert Runbeck. We have
tell me Hobbs was voted in by the people.
And Ellison. So, I was going to drive home the point, but instead I will move on. We have heard, okay, that the statistical improbabilities of an improbable, outcome with respect to the November 2020 election. Let's look at Andre Fontes. And
I know it's hard not to get discouraged. But if we don't do anything, it'll only get worse.
Statistically impossible. To win.
Are you referring to Stephen Richer?
Richer, sorry. My apologies. Fontes is a Democrat and was the incumbent. Percentages for Biden, Sinema, and Keddy ran up at approximately a 2.5% margin in the county against all their opponents. Richer won by approximately 6,000 votes. This means that 50,000 individuals who voted for the Democratic ticket across the board had to choose the Republican candidate for recorder against an incumbent who never suffered any scandal. Never happened. This was a planned loss. Hobbs would receive the Democratic nomination for governor and Fontes would run for Secretary of State to replace Hobbs. The strategy appeared to have been planned.
So they had it all worked out
I have
together.
shown you that both Hobbs and Fontes have what we call Britney deals,
Autopen,
evidencing a strong likelihood
January 6th
that
committee.
they are bribe recipients. Now, it may seem obvious, but I do feel that it's necessary to explain.
There's a lot on the table too. That's
given that
part of the
Arizona is a
issue.
border state and
There's just
that
so much
drug
on the
smuggling and
table.
human trafficking is $1 billion business, it would
It's gonna
appear that
take- it
having
would
our
take a
elected and
decade, really,
appointed
to get 'em
officials
all.
ensure that the cartel enterprise remain open for business will be paramount. The cartel invests substantially to ensure that the right people are in key positions so as to further their objectives. The fix for 2020 and for 2022 started in 2017 with appointment to election positions of individuals being bribed through the mortgage scheme and through monies being
So the
laundered
mortgage
by the
scheme
appointment of
was to
phantom
bribe
individuals.
people.
The problems with these documents are many.
Bribe
If you
election
look at your
officials that they
pages
put in
71 and
place.
76, the recorded appointments from Fontes, which were notarized by a Jessica York. First, the handwriting and handprinting of Jessica York have been identified as
So
belonging
if you
to
don't pay them
Brittany
with
by a
cash,
forensic
you pay them with
forensic
properties?
document expert. Secondly, the York signatures are the same handwriting, but not the same style. And that change of style exists even when the documents were allegedly signed on the same day. You can see the June 4th documents. The December 9th date and the clerk handwriting matches done. The signature of the clerk at the bottom is actually a tracing of a signature stamp. The time between the signature
Tracing of
and the
a stamp.
notarization and alleged
signature stamp.
execution of the clerk and thereafter the recorded date evidence forgery. Normally it's a 2 to 3 turnaround time. These took multiple months
The fix was in.
and all were allegedly clerk
And deals
executed and
made who would
recorded
get what off
after
office.
the election certification. I have example after example where things do not add up. In addition to state representatives, there are 3 of the 5 Maricopa County supervisors have also reported documents evidencing the acceptance of bribes. Further, we've investigated PACs relating to state office holders and dark money transactions relating to said PACs. From late 2018 to 22, a significant number of questionable real estate transactions were facilitated by several law firms, including partners at Perkins Coie. Mr. Thaler would be here himself presenting this information, but there have been multiple attempts on his life.
You need someone to go into those
Thaler was
places
driving from
undercover.
Arizona to California when suddenly he lost control of his vehicle. Upon investigation, it was discovered that his tire was purposefully slashed by a straight-edge knife, about 4 to 6 inches. The cut was made at such a location on the outer side of the tire where the tire would not lose air, but instead would degrade to a point causing catastrophic failure, most likely at high speed. Again,
They only cut it
declaration
partway
is
through then.
included in your packet. The declaration, the reason I mention this, and the only reason I mention this, is because a similar attempt was made on the life of Carrie Lake's daughter
Carrie Lake's daughter.
during her campaign. To date, 6 attempts have been made on Baylor's name. In Arizona, public officials accepting bribes include members of the legislature, the executive branches of the state government, more than 24 judges on the Maricopa County Superior Court, at least 2 judges in the city of Mesa Court, at least 1 judge in the town of Gilbert, the mayor of Mesa, 5 members of Mesa City Council, several police
Madam Chair,
officers.
point of order. This is not the appropriate place to be alleging we do have a rule
What about getting the truth out there? What about that?
In this chamber that we cannot impugn the motives of other members, as explosive as that testimony was.
They always use that to cover them up for each other.
But that is our rule.
Okay, so what we're going to do is this.
So how the hell you bring that stuff up?
I need you to wrap up in terms of impact to the election. Thank you.
Even though our investing covers multiple states, okay, Thaler and our team have interviewed over 30 witnesses in Arizona. Several individuals in the public officials list have cooperated with the investigation. The team has collected and reviewed more than 120,000 documents, as I've said. Okay. The immense data that we have collected will assist enforcement agencies investigating the election fraud. Further, the data we have collected and the connections we have found and the vast details of this entire investigation will lead enforcement agencies to those participating in the frauds and will help you restore election integrity within our beautiful state. Thank you.
Thank you. And my first question is, to whom have you given this data other than to us today?
As we said, the report was given to Governor Doug Ducey in May of 2022. So he has been made aware. As I mentioned in my presentation, FBI, some of the other
the FBI at that time wouldn't have done anything about it.
Attorney generals, especially in New Mexico and California.
Thank you. Okay.
Madam Chair, Ms. Brager, how was this given to Mr. Ducey? Was it by you personally?
No. No, it was not given by me personally. It was given by one of our team members.
Next question.
Yes.
Representative Jones.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Ms. Brager.
Brager.
Give this the Arizona Attorney General.
Madam Chair, Mr. Gray, we have not yet presented this to the Arizona
because you don't
Attorney
trust
General.
him.
We do know that Governor Ducey did share this with the Attorney General at the time.
How do you know that?
Yeah, how do you know that?
Because he shared that information with Mr. Thaler directly. But I personally have not given it to our Arizona Attorney General yet.
Madam Chair, Ms. Brager, was Mr. Thaler the one that gave this to the governor?
No, not directly, because Mr. Thaler is not in Arizona.
So how would Mr. Thaler know that Governor Ducey shared this with the Attorney General's office?
Because the Governor Ducey and Mr. Thaler were in contact.
Next question, Representative Jones.
Madam Chair, ma'am, thank you so much for coming. You're very brave, in my opinion. My question is, and I guess it's a question for clarity, how this is, in my opinion, related to the election is what you're stating is potentially many people, elected officials here, have potentially been bribed or blackmailed to get certain election results. And I think the people have the right to hear that because the people in Arizona right now crave truth. Is that, am I?
Absolutely. Yes, you are. Absolutely. And that is exactly why I'm here today. I think that we have gone round and round and round with the concept of election integrity, but nobody is willing to actually speak the truth of how did our election get compromised, and as in nuts and bolts. What happened to actually compromise our elections and compromise the integrity of our state.
Madam Chair, yes, Madam Chair, this is Brager. What may I ask? What political party are you?
Oh, excuse me, Madam Chair. I'm unaffiliated.
Madam Chair, follow up. Madam Chair, Mrs. Brager, how long has it taken for this information to be compiled, and how many people worked on this team?
Madam Chair, this information was compiled over approximately 3.5, 4 years. And we have had approximately 5 to 10 people at any given time, because it hasn't always been a consistent, working on this investigation.
To that point, Madam Chair,
go ahead,
Ms. Brager, Madam Chair, Ms. Brager, when did you say this was presented to Governor Ducey?
Madam Chair,
go ahead.
May 2022.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, Madam Chair, Ms. Brager, would you provide a copy for the committee that has the pages annotated, please? Thank you. It was very difficult to, you kept referring to page numbers, but none of the pages have any page numbers. Thank you.
Any other questions from the dais?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Senator Bennett.
Madam Chair, Ms. Breger, how is it that you were invited to address the committee today? By whom?
I was invited by by a representative.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
I wanted to get that out there. I don't know if anything's going to happen, but people have to know. That's my theory on it. Totally. And they're so corrupt, it's ridiculous.
I'm wondering what's going on here. This dude has a fit about something.
He's counting ballots. He's seeing the Trump voters.
And then flips off a ballot. And then crumples it up. That's not voter fraud. I don't know what is.
What's thoughts on that one?
That report found Dominion systems were, quote, intentionally designed to create errors on ballots. Those ballots would then have to be sent for adjudication, which the report alleges was done without oversight, transparency, or an audit trail, a paper trail. Now, the document concludes by stating Dominion machines should not have been used in Michigan and that the results in Antrim County should not have been certified. One America's Chanel Rion has more on this bombshell forensics audit.
On the day state electors are expected to submit their Electoral College votes, a Michigan judge ordered the release of a shocking document, a forensics audit of 16 Antrim County machines that made no uncertain conclusions about the Dominion system. Quote, "We conclude that the Dominion voting system is intentionally and purposefully designed with inherent errors to create systemic fraud and influence election results." The report was generated by the Allied Security Operations Group, a conglomerate of former DHS, CIA, DOD, and Secret Service technology and security specialists. The report continues. The system intentionally generates an enormously high number of ballot errors. The electronic ballots are then transferred for adjudication. The intentional errors lead to bulk adjudication of ballots with no oversight, no transparency, and no audit trail. This leads to voter or election fraud. Antrim County was arguably the spark that lit the many questions surrounding foreign election systems company Dominion. When it was discovered, an error in the system switched votes and affected 6,000 ballots. When the error was caught, the mistake was large enough to have flipped the county from Biden back to Trump. By Federal Election Commission standards, an acceptable rate of error in federal elections is 1 in a quarter million ballots, or 0.0008%. According to this Michigan report, the error rate observed in these 16 Dominion machines was a whopping 68.05%. That is, of the 15...
That means 68% of them were doing that. That was intentional.
15,676 individual events or ballots recorded into Dominion systems in Antrim County. 10,667 of those ballots were recorded as errors. When this happens, these errors are ballots that are then set aside for human adjudication. The adjudication process has neither transparency nor accountability. Technically, an individual can fix these error ballots incorrectly or dishonestly, and no one would know it, from the outside at least. Dominion Systems, a Canadian company with partnership ties to the Clinton Foundation, Teneo, and CEOs and stakeholders who are active Antifa members, has been used in past elections. The security group argues, looking at their past data, the number